In the rear view, we see it clear, every smile and every tear. With Steve's sly grin and clever view, our end of year review.
Hello and welcome to a look back at the last year. Now, in previous years, I've marked the end of one and the start of the next one by turning all of my newspaper columns into a book on Amazon. That's a lot of work for not much reward. So this year, like one of those episodes of Friends where they just lazily use old clips, I'm doing that. And Friends got away with it. Heck, Friends even got away with the whole Chandler dad thing, so I think we're safe. We start in January. Back then, I had one fewer children than I have now. And while the missus was dilating, I was posting about being on BBC Radio 5 Live talking about a travel problem. Something to do with a Channel tunnel. Can't remember anyway. Here's what we said.
Just one other clip I wanted to play, because there was a woman who's really fed up because she travelled a long way to get to the Channel, to go on the Channel tunnel. I think they're going to Disneyland for a family holiday. And there was a strike.
I think it's rude to strike at Christmas.
I just think, oh, God love her, you know, she's furious and you said it's rude.
I don't want to be the guy who goes there, but I'm going to do, if you're in France and your biggest worry is people being rude, you're going to have a tricky time.
To start the year off with a little xenophobia. But before you get all upset about it, don't worry, it was xenophobia about the French, which I think that's okay. It's a tradition, isn't it? Something like that. In January, just as my other half was about to go into hospital to pop out a baby, I came out of hospital after having an operation on my wrist. I didn't mention it lots at the time because I thought everyone would do the same joke, like, wrist? Was it working too much? Yes, but how else do you expect me to get work in the media these days? Anyway, also back in January, I started editing clips from the intros of Headliners, which is a newspaper review show on GB News, where I get to do jokes about the news, my favourite thing. I'm part of the eye candy on that show, which I realise is a bit like being the brawn in an episode of Only Connect. This was the first time when I thought to myself, I could take a whole hour of TV and probably whip it down to like a minute's worth tweeting.
Telegraph, Leo, the SNP is banning XL bullies. Short, aggressive and sometimes violent. The SNP and nationalist politicians in Scotland. Everyone saw that coming. Very good. And on TikTok, there are anti-aging creams for kids. Either that or they're not kids, and that cream really works. Find out more next. The Guardian, Josh, and TfL may put fake steering wheels on DLR trains because they can't actually be used, like indicators on BMWs. Calling a woman cis isn't allowed on Twitter, and it is a chat-up line in Norfolk.
I get it. I get it.
Leo, and an airline has apologised for a joke about Vietnam's currency. Not the first time someone's dong has got them in trouble. I would now like to apologise for that joke, obviously. The Mirror now. Josh, and South Korea is banning farming dog meat as we're destroying XL bully dogs. I smell a post-Brexit trade deal. To the Telegraph, Lewis, a migrant avoided deportation because he claimed he couldn't remember how to speak his mother tongue. Not speaking a foreign language, maybe this guy is British now. The Daily Star, Lewis, and a woman online says eating nothing but eggs and butter has cured her eczema, but it may have turned her thrush into a cake.
In February, I just had a daughter, so all of this was on no sleep, so lower your damn expectations. I didn't take any time off from my radio show on Time 107.5, little afternoon radio show. I do it from my shed. Spoiler alert, we're going to talk a lot about that shed later. It's been a big year for shed news. But the radio show gets turned into a podcast, which can have content that I can't off-com broadcast. So here's what my mind went to when I had no sleep. You know the normal thing that happens with sex stories in the news, like someone gets an injury because they're doing stuff like cramming a vase up the... And then the cliched line is like, oh no, I was cleaning naked, slipped and fell, and it just went up me. I think if ever I was cleaning naked, slipped and fell, and something went up my bottom, I'd turn up to A&E and say I was just trying to have sex with it. It's less embarrassing, isn't it? Imagine, okay, you're adventurous. You want to know what this feels like in your bottom? Good luck to you. What kind of a pillock cleans nude, slips, and somehow lands open anus first? Anyway, we've said too much. I cropped up on a show on Talk TV. That dates it. This show is called Mad World, and for some reason we were going on about Elon Musk, which, let's be honest, was not the last time.
So one of my favourite things about Elon Musk, though, is there are some people who get really upset about Bill Gates, saying that, he's just some sort of eco man, and he's trying to put chips in us all. Meanwhile, Elon is making electric cars and putting chips in people, and yet he gets away with it. It's brilliant.
I think it's because we just don't trust Bill Gates. We all wasted years of our lives waiting for Internet Explorer to load a page. And Bill Gates, the man who gave us Windows Vista, then went on to develop some kind of waterless toilet for impoverished areas in Africa. A similar thing, because they're both a big pile of... Well, you get where that joke's going. To March, I cannot remember what happened in March. It feels like years ago. It's been a long year, man. March was before the elections, and there were two big ones this year. Well, there were loads of elections this year, but there were two in the main English-speaking countries we care about. Sorry, that's a bit xenophobic again, isn't it? Where else were there elections this year? France, all right, that's fine then. What was happening back then? Well, the Princess of Wales had gone missing, and the internet had nothing better to do than to go full flat earth on it. How do you silence the crazies on the internet? I mean, you don't, but you certainly don't do it by releasing an AI photo.
This is the most ridiculous story ever, isn't it? I mean, look, yes, it was edited. You can look at that picture, you know it's edited. You also look at it and know that it wasn't created by Google's Gemini AI. Right. That would have come out very
Too many white people.
Too many for that picture. And it's caused such a scandal. The international press agencies had to redact it, or they call it a kill notice. The last time I heard a kill notice was ordered on a princess. Wait a minute, I'm being told I can't finish that joke. Right. But no, I don't know why we're so obsessed. It is nothing other than...
When did you get that earpiece?
It's the voices.
Oh, okay.
It's the voices in my head.
It's the BBC.
It's my training. Remember your training, Steve. Don't do that joke.
Spoiler alert, we now know that Kate hadn't gone missing, and neither had Andrew, which must have disappointed some of the royals. In personal news, I was still harping on about having a new daughter.
Steve.
I'm doing all right. I mean, a little bit tired. I keep going on about the fact I've got a child.
Yes, you do, don't you?
I know. She's 7 weeks old. I will say this quickly, though. She's now started to do a lovely smile. Everyone says it's gas. And if it is, then why am I burping it? Because that smile's beautiful, so I've been running the breast milk through the soda stream.
Thankfully, she is still smiling at me in the same way. And I think it's because she recognises me from the TV. I mean, yes, I do sit her down and make her watch all of these clips. Yeah. Speaking of which, get some more of these down you.
Guardian, Cressida, David Miliband says the UK has lost its status, says the man who was once the best Miliband brother. Little side note, the best Miliband brother is Steve.
Oh, is there a third?
Steve Miliband.
Nice.
Oh my God, I should have got it. It's such a good joke and I didn't even get it, sorry.
To the Daily Mail, Paul, the issue of trans children. And I remember when I was still in education, the only worry I had about sex was if I was ever going to get any. That was a lonely third year at university. Anyway, Daily Mail, Cressida. Would you eat lab-grown meat? No, I prefer my meat genetically modified, pumped full of hormones and antibiotics, as God intended.
Nice.
To the Metro, Cressida. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is now fighting cancel culture. But if you compare your Johnson to a rock, you are going to get me too'd. To the Sun, Cressida. And are we ready for nuclear war? I've been stocking up on candles, but I got those Gwyneth Paltrow candles, and now my backyard is full of the neighbours' cats. Anyway.
So how's everyone getting this stuff?
I want to know too, Chris.
It must be a toilet seat. Yeah. I caught so many from a toilet seat, including that cold sore, which is weird. But anyway, let's move on. To the Daily Mail, Cressida. And an alpha male boot camp trains men to be husbands by shouting at them. And if you can handle that, you'll be a great husband.
How unfair.
Man, I was fat. In April, there was a political scandal, and sadly, the modern world is just not as good as the old one, is it? Like back then, Profumo, such a sexy scandal, they made a cracking film out of it. These days, we have Willy Rag.
I blame the parents. If you're Mr. and Mrs. Rag and you call your son something that is shortened to Willy, so he started off badly. So already we need to feel sorry for William Rag, the member, to take a quick look at.
Right.
And so he was caught up in a honey trap.
Has he ever done a private member's bill, do you think?
He should keep his members
he
private.
should.
That would have solved this problem, wouldn't it? So this honey trap it sounds more romantic than it is, because a honey trap, you imagine some sort of espionage thing. You met someone on Grindr. The other person sent a rude...
It's not very romantic, Grindr, I'm told.
I've never checked, but I'll take your word for it. So the other person, this scammer, sent the rude picture, but William wasn't dragged up. He realises etiquette dictates that one should reciprocate a DP.
Right.
So he sends one back. And
a DP, is that the...
It's an abbreviation for... something pic.
You can say it.
Can you say dick pic?
I didn't really... You can, yeah. I mean,
I've got one here if you... Can we really go for it? What?
No.
Just send it to me.
I'll WhatsApp it later. But the point is, so then we kind of have a meet-up, which again could be spelt with an A rather than double E.
Yes.
But it didn't happen. What happened was he then started to get extorted. This guy was...
That's kind of what goes on, isn't it?
Fully ringing out the willy rag. And what happened there was he wanted numbers of other politicians, other MPs. And William gave them. He's like a 118 guy but without trousers.
Yeah.
And then, this is the thing that really gets me, this scammer then just sends other dick pics to some politicians who just send one back. Because Because of manners, or one upmanship.
don't-
You know, like in
It's very
Crocodile,
British, isn't it?
So-
in
Well,
Crocodile
I suppose
Dundee,
I better
like,
just join in.
That's not
Would
a
you
knife,
do
this
that?
is a
What?
knife. Zip.
The most ridiculous thing about all of this is that, you know, somebody goes, right, send me a picture of your erect penis. I'll send you one of mine. And then, by the way, have you got Ian Duncan Smith's number? You're going,
It
sorry.
wouldn't be erect for long.
You know, I think we should just not judge politicians for getting into all the sex stuff. It would make it impossible to blackmail someone over a sex scandal, wouldn't it? If we didn't mind what politicians did, the Profumo scandal would have been about a woman who couldn't sit on a chair the right way. I'd still watch the film of it, though. In April, I was also trying to cram some one-liners into the news, even when I wasn't hosting the show.
Creating deepfake pornography to be a criminal offence. So now I actually have to film those scenes. I'm going to have to stretch first.
Which is German railway, which is very efficient, but so they're putting in these little booths.
I feel sorry for the ticket inspector, because you're still going to have to do the knock on the door, kind of, you know, where are you getting off? Well, I was thinking about her back. North Korea using genetic engineering in biological weapons program. Is this really what Kim Jong-un should be getting his top scientists doing, copying bioweapons? I bet he's got at least one team copying Ozempic.
Mexican drug cartels are stealing women's undie in military-style raids.
Can I just say really quickly, drugs and women's underwear, a lot in common. You will ruin your 20s if you get into sniffing them.
Yeah.
Teachers dismiss schoolboys Osama bin Laden phone screensaver because he was often trying to shock people before the FBI caught him planning a terror attack. It's, of course, they did. We all went through that phase, didn't we? Back in the 80s, I remember loads of people at school had the poster of Jerry Adams scratching his bum while playing tennis. The 80s were a crazy time. Smacking children must be banned to stop long-term damage, doctors say. Surely today was just a radio phone-in. I used to do that for a living, and if ever you want an easy day, you pick dangerous dogs, parking fines, or smacking your kids. Because we're a nation of animal lovers, drivers, and kid smackers.
Google employees arrested after protesting tech giants' work with Israel.
I've got a
Google.
picture of them here.
Okay, and they made their own signs. You got to give them credit.
How do they not print? You literally work at Google.
Oh, good.
Just use the printer.
Into May, and we were getting excited about an election that would happen on July the 4th. If you haven't watched the news yet, I won't ruin the ending for you. There was an odd story about a court case that was getting down with it, in as much as they were going to use rap music. We still didn't get a legal ruling on if you're allowed to sing all of the words to Kanye's Gold Digger. It's crucial for the rhyming, but anyway, this is how I covered it on GB News.
Rap music used as evidence in scores of trials in England and Wales, study finds. Sadly, they don't mean witnesses are using the medium to give evidence and testimony. I think, well, you know, kind of, that's the man, he's in the court dock. Locking him up would be a short shock. That's the guy, did I stammer? Put him right in the slammer. Word.
Very good.
Now, the problem with headliners, and I'm not complaining, please don't stop booking me, I need the money, is that you don't have a lot of time to work on the material. You only get a couple of hours to write all of the stuff, so you don't have a chance to follow through on the ideas. But thankfully, I got all the time the next day to do this online.
The prosecution calls its first witness. Is the man in question in this room?
That's the man, he's in the court dock. Sending him down will be a sharp, short shock. You get my rhymes and the truth comes with it. I was there and I know that he did it. Let the court do what's right or I'll say this is bull. My testimony's tight and it's very admissible. Ain't past the bar but I know what life taught us. Miranda rights and habeas corpus. It ain't the first time he's hit someone with a fist. Lock this fella up, he's a terrible recidivist. He's the one, now did I stammer? Get this guy banged up right in the slammer.
Speaking of musical numbers, for years I've been thankful for North Korea. They've been a source of material so much they've helped me pay the mortgage. Bless them. And they're back. They made a song to promote themselves. I managed to get a copy. Thankfully, it had subtitles.
친근한 호모일 배부신 근종은 바다 같아라 쑤시는 그 믿음은 하늘 같아라 언제나 우리 곁에 함께 계시며 모든 소원 꼽혀주시네 노래하자 김종은 위대하신 용도자 사랑하자 김종은 친근한 호모일 한마음 믿고 따르네 친근한 호모일
More from North Korea later, especially if you like poo-filled stories. You're in the right place. This was the year when baby reindeer was a thing. I'm just annoyed because years ago I had a problem with a stalker and I went to the police for a crime number. Should have written a damn show out of it, shouldn't I? Anyway, the lady in question went on Talk TV and I went on a day or so after. And here's what we did.
Baby reindeer.
Yeah, I mean...
Wait. Can you please say baby reindeer?
I can say baby reindeer.
Baby reindeer.
Baby reindeer.
Like she was in the room.
I was mentioned. Well,
Yes.
I'll give you a haul out.
Yes.
I'll set the stall out. It was you in a wig all along with Fiona Harvey. Well, yeah, so she apparently sent 41,000 emails.
She denies that. She's not
She denies
sure.
it, but 41,000 emails, to put it in context, is how many emails you get if you sign into a shop's Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So it's about a week's worth of that.
Right.
She said she actually only sent about 10.
It's Fiona Harvey talking to Piers Morgan.
Because I didn't write him the emails.
Who do you think did?
I have no idea. I think he probably made them up himself. I've no idea. 41,000 emails.
Yeah.
Well, even if I did write them, I didn't do all that other stuff. And you're going, sorry? Oh, what? So did you write them or not? I can't remember. I don't think I did. I don't think I wrote that
She
many.
said she's got a photographic memory.
Yeah.
Oh,
Did you
that
send
was
those
a
emails?
brilliant one, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Let's also chalk that up as a tribute to Alex Salmond, who we lost this year. And that's what the tributes are like on this show. And now to June already. And we're back with North Korea. Remember the days when they were launching the nuclear weapons as part of their testing program? Worrying times. Admittedly, they just landed them in the ocean. It looked more like they'd gone to war with Aquaman. But it turns out, even now, they can still make a dirty bomb. The latest in the Korean War, I mean, I don't think they're going to bring back the TV show MASH, but South Korea sent over some propaganda in a balloon. North Korea retaliated by sending over a balloon full of poo. Not sure how you get it in the balloon. There's probably a video online. The latest is that South Korea is retaliating by playing cheesy K-pop music over the border. I say war. This is basically a neighbour dispute now, isn't it? But I'm still more impressed by North Korea. Because K-pop, right? South Korea is known for its cheesy K-pop. They've got loads of that going spare. Sending some over there doesn't make a difference. But North Korea is basically in famine. The fact that they managed to get a balloon full of poo is actually quite impressive. You know, that carried on after this. They kept sending balloons full of poop. Meanwhile, we have our water companies that leave our own poos in our waterways. So they have a better plan to get rid of their turds than we do. Great. Meanwhile, back in doing news intros, but this time it was from the TV studios next to Westminster. Ooh, fancy.
The Independent, the Tory betting scandal, and some of the ways that some of them are acting, I'm starting to suspect they put money on a Labour supermajority. Yeah. With the Metro, loads of people went to Stonehenge for the solstice. I would have gone, but it seems like a really long day.
Yeah, it's all orange. It's all orange.
The Telegraph, it seems that knockoff versions of Ozempic will help you lose weight, but sadly through the dying way.
Yes, not everyone's favourite methods.
Hacked blood test results were released online, so now everyone knows I don't have syphilis. That's my reputation ruined. Leo, the I paper looks like the only way that migrants are going to go to Rwanda could be via tectonic plate shift. Yeah. Nick, the I paper, the Tories are getting tough with their national service plans. Young people would be getting worried if it weren't for, you know, the obvious. The Daily Mail claims the Brontes were queer gender because they published books with male pen names. That's like saying I'm queer gender because of that online account where I pretend to be... Anyway.
Yeah.
I was also cropping up on Ian Collins' show on Talk. We worked together for many years. Like, I was on his LBC show back in the day. We used to present together on BBC Radio Kent. And now we're talking about stuff like this.
1,371 last year. That's a 70% increase, Steve, on the previous year. Something's gone wrong. Is this because people bought dogs during lockdown? What the heck is happening?
No, I don't think that's it. Most people I know who bought a dog during lockdown bought some kind of hypoallergenic something with the word poo in it. The cockapoo, the poo Daniel, I don't know what the spaniel, whatever the words are, the portmanteau that always, of all the, I suppose your other option It's to focus on the cocker, isn't it? There are many things wrong with the names. This is not what we're talking about. Those dogs aren't the problem here. And actually, it's true. People always say there's no such thing as a bad dog. It's a bad owner. And the question is, what kind of an owner wants to own a dog that can rip a person apart?
Correct.
I read an interview. Yeah, I read an interview with a guy who originally bred the XL Bully in America. And he makes the point that originally they tried to have a dog with such a great temperament. And the problem is there's been crossbreeding and the temperament's been ruined. But I think if you've got a dog that's got a great temperament and looks like The Rock, what kind of person do you think wants to buy a dog like that looks like it could win an arm wrestle? It's going to go bad eventually. And yeah, this needs to be, it's basically licensing, isn't it? I mean, the old days of a dog license kind of caused a lot of these problems to go away. You know, you could get it tracked down, and then you need to hold people responsible for what their dog does, and then people would start buying those yappy things that you can beat in a fist fight.
Yeah, I thought you were going to do the old kind of black and white license was cheaper kind of gag there for a second, but
That's a good one.
I'm glad you swerved it, Steve. I'd have been slightly disappointed had you done.
Oh, speaking of BBC Radio Kent, one thing I used to do for about 4 years there, I wrote little topical sketches for their breakfast show. It ended when the BBC cut loads of stuff back during lockdown. I still get people who recognise me from there. And, well, during the hot weather this year, they asked me to go back to do a one-off. It's like a flipping Blues Brother plot, this.
Could be as hot as yesterday, which was the hottest day of the year so far. So why don't we deal with it very well? Well, it turns out here in Britain, we like to complain a lot, as comedian Stephen Allen explains.
Weather. According to recent research I just did at that bus stop, it's a topic of conversation for Brits 102% of the time. But for a nation that's obsessed with talking about the weather, we're oddly underprepared for when weather attacks. It's because traditionally we're used to what's called boring weather. In the summer months, our weather presenters say things like,
but the mild weather has lasted a few days.
And for all of us, much milder than it has been today.
But as a result, it's going to be quite a mild night.
And in the winter months, they say,
but the mild weather has lasted a few days.
And for all of us, much milder than it has been today.
But as a result, it's going to be quite a mild night.
The problem with such mild conditions is that we lower our guard, so we're not ready for when the extreme weather hits. And by extreme weather, I mean the one day in winter when there are 3 flakes of snow that shut the M20, and in the summer, heat waves. It's important to note that while these are heat waves in the UK, it's not that warm. Like a middle-aged boss having a midlife crisis affair, your world is about to get messed up by a 20-something. Temperatures that we complain about here, in other countries, they'd say, it's a little bit cold today. And you can tell by that accent I'm talking about South Africa? New Zealand. Israel, Transylvania. Look, the point is, there are many places where this isn't that hot. And that's okay. If it wasn't for the fact that we spend most of the year saying, oh, it'd be nice to get some good weather for once. And then, on the one day we finally get good weather, it's a bit hot, isn't it? What do you want? So what's the advice if you're out in the hot sun like I am? Well, take your shirt off in places where no one wants to see what you've got, drink alcohol in the day, and lie in the sun like you're a gecko. It's the worst advice possible, but it's what people seem to do here in a park like this one. Look at him! He's so white and blobby that Ghostbusters would cross their streams to get rid of him. It's the only weather where we seek it out. We lie in the sun. You know when it's raining lots, no one goes out wearing one of those cones injured dogs have and looks up. My advice is just chill out. Stephen Allen, BBC Radio Kent. Right, now I can get out this voiceover booth and put my clothes back on. I don't care that there's a webcam.
It's all right.
Yep, that's what I used to do for a living. I know, you want your licence fee back now, I understand. July. This was the last time that I got to broadcast from the old shed. I'd turned that little wooden hut into a studio, and I think it looked all right. Here was the last time that I broadcast from it on Times Radio.
Steve, let's start with you. What is on the Steve and Allen Times front page today?
The shocking story of, well, the newspapers are calling it the end of the Pret free subscription or free coffee subscription. They changed the subscription because the only reason anyone wanted it was because of the fact that you could get like the coffee in there. They've changed the terms and conditions or whatever, so now you don't get the same access to coffee. And everyone's spinning it as, you know, well, it was expensive. This is what I don't get about our obsession with coffee. It surely is the cheapest thing to make, and it must have the biggest markup. You go for you get an espresso, so you're not even getting a lot of water in there. It'll be like £3 in some shops. So yeah, I mean, I used to be a big coffee addict. The pandemic got me cured of it. I stayed home and realised, wait a minute, I can make a coffee here. So the fact that that they expect us to have to go and pay for individual coffees again. It's flavoured water. It doesn't even taste that nice. It just smells nice. It wakes you up. That's the only reason we drink it.
Coffee, rebrand it as flavoured water. There you go. That's a campaign slogan for you, Steve.
By this stage, I had knocked down the shed studio. The new one was being built, but I was still broadcasting from the bedroom, so the nation got to see my smalls. Sorry about that.
I'm glad you're there, Steve. I know that shed of yours is going that you're in, and the new one is arriving soon. Is this the last day broadcasting?
No, I'm not in the shed today. I've had to
you're
move
not? Oh,
to
you can't even. Yes.
I'm in the bedroom where the magic happens, but not that magic. This magic.
This magic, yes, indeed.
Yeah. It was like a grand designs thing, in that it took longer than planned, went over budget, and we were probably at risk of ending up pregnant. Not really sure how that works, but it seems to be in every episode. But in serious news, I was hosting Headliners the moment when someone shot Donald Trump. So I have an alibi. Isn't it odd that you can definitely joke about it now, but at the time, oh man. A few days later, we managed to cover it like this.
This is so good. Again, I've written comedy for ages. If I ever wrote this, they'd think this is ridiculous. So Kimberly Cheetle, the director of the Secret Service, had apparently decided not to guard the position on the roof because sloped, like roofs. And that could pose a risk to the safety of officers. Is there anything else that might pose a risk to the safety of the officers, like someone shooting in the general direction of where the officers are?
And add to this the debate where Biden sounded like he was coming down from a massive one. I mean, before the debate, people were saying, oh, he'll be on drugs to enhance his performance. He was on drugs, all right. Ketamine by the look of him. So he pulled out just before I was going to go on Free Speech Nation. I kind of started to think these Yanks had it in for my career.
This particular presidential race has had so many ups and downs. It's been so dramatic. Yeah. It couldn't possibly be scripted, could it? I mean, do you think that they made a mistake holding this televised debate so soon? It was unusual for a start. Yeah. I mean, it would normally take place much closer to the election itself. Yeah. What was their thinking there?
I think when Joe Biden was offered what they called an early debate, he thought, done by 4:30 and in bed by 5.
How mean. How mean.
No, I think this will end up being the best thing to make this the closest to a fair election it could be. Because imagine if they hadn't have done the debate then, it would have been too late.
Imagine the no difference it would have made. I mean, when they told him that Trump had won, he must have said, "Who are you? How did you get in here?" By the way, I was getting thinner by then, wasn't I? Beach body ready. To August, where there was a scandal about Strictly and not the kicking thing directly. And you don't want to be kicked by a professional dancer. They've got good legs. Getting kicked by someone on Only Connect, we could all take. Most of us wouldn't even notice. Anyway, here's what the news was. And so much of what's in this clip has not aged well.
It's the most pointless story, but so massive blow for Strictly Come Dancing as BBC show manages to sign just 6 women amid bullying scandal. However, previously it would have been like 2 more women. Would have made it balance. Are you telling me that in all of media you can't find 2 female celebrities wanting to relaunch their career willing to be shouted at by an Italian? I'm sure, like later in the year we'll get I'm a Celebrity. There will be people willing to chomp down on Kangaroo Ball just to relaunch their career. They would be willing to do this. If you want someone who's desperate to restart their career, just look at the panel on Mark Dolan's show. You can
Shots fired. Oh my God. You're sitting next to Lewis Schaefer right now, Steve.
Yeah, what about me? Ask me to be on the show.
In what might be the biggest news story of the year, the post-election riots. It was like 2011 all over again. Back then, there was an election, the supporters of the side that lost felt disenfranchised, and it bowled over into riots. At least back then, they got free trainers from the looting. This year, the rioters just got free prison terms for their tweets, which is impressive. Because these days, not everyone gets to prison. They're full. So it's quite a win.
This is the headline. Hamza Yusuf, riots could force my family and I to leave UK. This is terrible. It's my family and me. In this sentence, you are the object and the riots are the subject. Come on, man. How difficult is it? So he said that him and his family might have to leave because of the far-right riots. What he might have to do is pick a country where there have been no riots. Checks no. Scotland. Well, you're OK then. Stay in Scotland.
I also got to look at some of this big news story on Talk's Plank of the Week show. I've been on there a few times, thankfully, only ever as a panellist, not been nominated once yet. We were talking about the warning that the government had given us. Think before you post. And if you fancy a little bit of extra here, take a look at the response I got from Isabel Oakeshott, who I'm guessing will not be smashing the like button on my YouTube. Think before you post should only be applied to greetings cards with glitter.
Yes.
Don't send me one of those because you are making my life hell for about a
No,
fortnight.
don't worry, you can't send anything through the post anymore because it never gets anywhere. It never gets there.
There was a classic bit of news in the Telegraph about the NHS and some gender issues. I mean, not the first time I've talked about gender issues. You've seen where I work.
Radiographers at multiple hospitals have been told they must check whether all patients aged 12 to 55 are pregnant, regardless of their sex. This is part of an inclusivity guidance. This is guidance was written after an incident where a trans man was unknowingly pregnant, had a CT scan. And as a result, they're now deciding you've got to ask everybody, are you up the stick?
Yeah, I mean, this is an abundance of caution issue, isn't it? That they made this whoopsie once and they want to make sure they don't do it again. What they've done is taken it too far. And when I go to the dentist, that's it. I've actually got a dentist. That should be the headline shocker here. Imagine that.
Right there.
I've got an actual dentist. But every time I go in there for a checkup, I've got to fill in a form, and one of them is there a chance you could be pregnant? And of course, no, because duh. And that's it. I crack on with my life.
So you've actually had that question?
Yeah, but that's because it's just a thing that they print off, and up the top I'll tick my sex, and then lower down there's the question. What you don't want is for them to have to sit you down and have the talk with you like you've no idea what the birds and the bees are. They don't need it as a question. All they need to do is say you're having a scan. It's a scan that you can't have if you're pregnant. That's it. You don't have to make it this awkward thing. In the article, it says how people were annoyed at the question. How deep and probing were they going to try and work out if these people could be pregnant? There was one story of a bloke who's he was on the 2-week urgent cancer pathway, was so annoyed by the questions he stormed out instead of having the scan. Now, to be fair, if I thought I could have cancer, I'd answer a couple of dumb questions.
Yeah, I might.
Ask me something
it
about
might
my
usurp
quiff
that.
if you want.
But
Yeah,
if they start to put your legs in those stirrups and then whip out a torch, Steve, then you might start to rethink this policy of yours.
Yeah, I'd think this is not a very good dentist. She does not know which end's which. They're not my molars.
Absolutely, yeah, you won't find them there.
I don't have tonsillitis. Yeah.
Not that we know of.
And if it's a good story, it's worth getting booked twice to talk about it.
I had something a few weeks ago where the doctor, I was sent for an x-ray and he sent me with the wrong forms, which I didn't look at.
Right.
It was a man's name. So I handed it over to the secretary at radiography, and she was scrutinising me, she was looking at me, and she said, "Are you this person?" And I said, "No, that's the wrong form." And she's like, "I'm so sorry. I thought maybe you might be transgender." Like, she couldn't ask me.
She apologised.
Yes, I swear.
At least she checked before she gave you the prostate test, because you could have been there all day. September. Do you remember when I was doing some news intros?
The Mail on Sunday, typical. Donald Trump is going to debate Kamala Harris, and he's already mainly thinking about her box.
It's Trump's bizarre request.
The Observer, Pink Floyd famously said, "We don't need no education." Although with one, they might have spotted that double negative. The Sunday Telegraph and an art galleries to stop owning Indigenous art. But is the tape modern? So it's like drawings by 3-year-olds. Oh, I've knocked over a flower pot. It's art now.
Steve.
The Mail on Sunday, Starmer orders Starlink for number 10, which is good if you want to connect to the internet in a place with crumbling infrastructure. What does he know that we don't? Nick, the I, migrants, they don't integrate, they don't learn the language, and they use the country's healthcare. But, Steve, aren't you worried about being cancelled for saying that? Tell us the story, Nick.
Finally, we agree on something, Steve. So it's British pensioners in Spain.
How does alcohol affect your sex life? It cleans my hands after. Get more next.
A lot of the news had been about Russia and their chums China and the connections with Iran, and also our favourites, North Korea. So I tried to start a trend, grouping them together. I've never managed one before, till now. I've been trying to get people to use the CRINK acronym for China, Russia, Iran and North Korea for ages. I've done it at a few different TV channels on different shows, just trying to see if it could catch on. And then today, this happened.
North Korea is part of that CRINK group of nations, China, Russia, Iran and North Korea, making up that acronym.
Success!
It's a bunch of some nations. Crink, they want altercations. Crink, it's making them stronger. Crink, we're not safe any longer. Crink, it's not just Xi and Putin. Crink, they might put the boot in. Crink, I don't know what they're doing, but I don't think they like NATO or the UN.
It can be easy to get stuck into eco stories as well. I hosted Free Speech Nation a couple of times this year and got to speak to someone from Just Stop Oil. We got into the weeds debating the nature of false dichotomies when formulating the explanation of such protests. The idea that you have to take this action because climate change will be so bad presupposes that your actions and only your actions will be the thing that stops climate change. Highbrow stuff. Is that the clip I'm going to show you now? Is it balls?
Reduce the length of reduce the speed of the flight and save the planet, Steve.
Yeah, and it's reduce it by like 15% reduction in speed and you get a 5% reduction in fuel burn. I'm not sure that sounds worth it. And I'm presuming they are experts enough to have done the maths. I remember at university doing the Bernoulli effect, which, you learn about how flight happens.
Yeah, we all did that.
And one of the things that makes flight happen is speed. They do realise if they slow down, at some point they drop out the air. I'm sure they've looked into that. Otherwise, I mean, it saves fuel, I guess.
Apparently, the planes over Wales will be down to 20 miles an hour, we're hearing. So maybe we'll probably see the problem in action there first.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't... Actually, if you look at the time cost, they were saying for like a 7-hour flight, it's like a 50 minutes, so an extra hour on top of it. Some of that time you could get back, right? Basically, what I'm saying is I'm willing to accept this if they can just speed up the mess in the airports. If you give me an extra half hour in the air, but a half hour saving down on the land, I'll be okay with that, which means you can never go to Stansted. I don't know the last time you went there, but the planes don't land anywhere near the darn airport. You have to, it's like another half-hour bus ride to get anywhere near there, and then you just,
Yes, I don't think the runways are actually in Stansted. I've sort of discovered that myself there when we were taken on an extraordinary bus journey, and there was a tour guide on the bus. I thought, well, that's a clue for a start,
Well,
you look out of your window, you'll see some trees.
There's a bloke going, I'll get you, Butler. I think that added to it.
Yeah. It was double-decker, as it turned out.
Have you ever wondered why my career isn't on fire? I know, I have. Maybe it's because when people get good jobs where I could probably work with them or something, I just can't help myself. I'd written a bit for The Spectator a while back, and all of this is connected to the boss at a TV place where I work, and yet I still said this. Michael Gove named as Spectator editor after GB News backers takeover. So when you consider that this is because it's been bought by Paul Marshall, who's one of the backers of GB News, I'd just like to say this is a great appointment.
Great guy.
Michael Gove will bring his expertise, not his expertise, he hates experts. Michael Gove will bring his loyalty, although he stabbed Boris Johnson in the back and Theresa May and Liz Truss. That last one was pretty good. He will bring his intelligence, because when he was in charge of education, Michael Gove said he wanted all schools to be above average. That guy doing that, that's what's happening.
Well, I don't know. I think he'll be quite good at this. Yeah. I genuinely do.
I didn't mention the drugs. Oh, well. In October, I like to think that I could have hosted a consumer feature one day. You know, the kind of thing where you get to help people get their money back. Like this.
The woes, the difficulties, the challenges, and we've all been there, of hiring an escort. Well, this man, I'm not talking about a Ford. I'm talking about, somebody who is clearly looking for a little bit of, the horizontal gymnastics, and they're willing to pay for it, and that's fine. Man who hired 2 escorts at 8,000 quid tried to get his money back from his bank using rules that were meant for scam victims. So he lodged a complaint after feeling unsatisfied with the services provided. Although the escorts did meet, did meet him as agreed, that wasn't in. But the financial ombudsman rejected the appeal, indicating there was no evidence of a scam.
It's brilliant, isn't it? So yeah, goes to his bank. It wasn't the bank that likes to say yes, but I guess he'd already found 2 people who like to do that. I love the fact that it says that the guy identified as Mr. H. The bank found that the escorts had agreed to what was asked. We don't really know what was asked, though, do we? I mean,
that's true.
Something had happened, and he didn't like it that much. But instead of, £8,000 as well. That's, I don't know the going rate, but if I wouldn't pay £8,000 unless I had like Lord Ali stumping up for me.
That's about £273.58, I think.
Is it? Oh, how embarrassing getting your change back. That's getting the coins in the hand afterwards. It's just pressure to leave a tip, isn't it?
But I mean, isn't the principle that he was trying to utilise the rules of, you know, buying a service and then discovering you don't get what you paid for. So maybe your Visa card or your bank will be able to utilise the very thing that if somebody phoned you up and told you they were going to sell you a nice brand new iPhone and they sent you an old Nokia from 1987, that would be a scam. So if he thought he was booking two people and these were the agreements, whether it was about looks, age or whatever, he's essentially utilising I mean, he didn't win, but he gave it a go.
And I'll give you this as well. It's not illegal to do that, is it? To pay for sex or to be an escort. Isn't it that the rules of the UK are that you have to run a brothel to be illegal, or curb crawling is illegal, but the actual paying for those kind of antics. I love the fact that you've got the metaphor of you want an iPhone and you get an old Nokia. I think we all know what's happening there. The picture, she looked like an iPhone, but when she turned up, Did you used to work with Russ Abbott?
Listen, don't bring Russ into this. He's done nothing. Steve.
He loves an atmosphere, but that's not the atmosphere you're after, is it? I also made some clips from the bedroom. I know that's still sounding more OnlyFans-y than we'd like it to, isn't it? We were talking about the eco thing again. Here's a headline for you. Sadiq Khan seizes hundreds of non-ULEZ compliant cars and sells them off. Oh, come on, mate, you're not making this easy to defend. Look, some people think that ULEZ is all about making money, and I'll tell you how to disprove that. Not doing this. This is not helping, because the thinking will go along the lines of you start with a congestion zone and it makes you loads of money, so you make it a bit bigger. And what can you do then? You've already fixed congestion. You can't really do more of that. So you bring in an air quality zone, not just in central London, but the other bits out there where the trees are. Now, if you really cared about the air quality, surely you'd just ban the cars instead of saying, well, rich people can pay to go and drive around their polluting little pup everywhere. But that's one way of making money. You get the charge from going in there. If you don't pay the charge, you get a fine, and they make the money from the fine. If you don't pay the fine, they can send in the bailiffs and then sell your car and make that money, which effectively means the Mayor of London is in the business of selling non-ULEZ compliant cars. I mean, it's genius, really, because whoever he sells one to, if they go anywhere near London, will have to pay the charge. And if they don't pay it, they'll pay the fine. And if they don't pay it, they'll get the car nicked and it'll go on to someone else. It's genius. Like Bernie Madoff would be sat there thinking, I just did pyramids, but this is a cycle that can go on forever. But you know, if you really care about air quality, why don't you scrap the cars? It's not money that you would have been expecting. It's the fine, not the charge in the first place. Why don't you write them off and not have the money? And I can't help myself. Even though we don't have to start fights about Brexit anymore, I keep going back. I once made a Brexit joke in a newspaper column, and some bloke spent 2 years texting a radio station where I worked just with hate. That must have cost him, unless he had like a good sim plan. And yet...
Steve and Alan Times, the front page. Steve, what are you putting on there today?
I'm going with a Brexit story because I'm that kind of person. Sorry to be annoying.
Brave.
Yeah, I know. Very true. But it's costing us more if you want to go to France and go and see the Mona Lisa in the Louvre. They want to try and increase the price to see it for non-French citizens, but because of the EU, the rules of the EU, they can't do it to other members of the EU. So basically, somehow this means we're going to end up paying more to see the Mona Lisa. The only reason I want this story there is so I can go with the headline, Ramona Lisa. It's a gift, isn't it? Come on, the front page needs that.
I mean, in a sense, and I think it was Sir Chris Bryant who objected to this on X, sort of reminding the French that the British Museum and most of the museums in the UK, but especially the British Museum, are free, and they're free to everybody from all over the world. It'd be a sad thing if you're spending all that money paying tourist taxes as well to visit Paris, and then on top of that, being asked to pay extra to visit one of the highlights of the city.
I don't want to be that guy to bring this up, but I suppose it's free to everyone across the world because most of our museums are full of their stuff. So it feels only fair that we show it back to them. I was still doing the news intros as well, and this was the first time on the new set of Headliners.
The Telegraph, Labour might ban smacking children. Maybe they should look into banning smacking constituents. So we'll move on to the Telegraph, Josh. And Rachel Reeves could cut VAT relief on active churches, but they did promise not to tax working steeples.
Hey!
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm not religious at all, but I love going around a church, but then I love going around ruins. So actually, maybe
they should...
Telegraph, there's a queer running club that's pro-Palestine, which makes sense, because if they're in Palestine, they'd have to get good at running. Welcome back to Headliners. As we've been saying all evening, you can get involved. Make a comment on the website, gbnews.com/your say. One comes in from Fred, who says, tonight is the first time I've seen Headliners read out posts. Thank you for that, Fred. Josh, to the Daily Mail. It's the modern trend to call anyone you don't like a fascist. What do you think about this, Lewis, you fascist?
I was even thinner then. Let's just take a look at earlier in the year versus later in the year. Woohoo! It looks like one of them's eaten the other one. To November, which comes from the Latin for nearly there in this video. Back on Plank of the Week and getting to work with Jeremy Kyle. I knew I would end up working with him one day. Yes, I presumed it would be me getting a fertility test. So thankfully, it was this.
Steve and Alan, over to you.
I want to nominate Mattel, the toy company, because they've done a great thing. They've made a printing error on the boxes of their toys from the Wicked thing. And instead of having a link to the film's web address, it goes to a porn website.
That is
To be fair, either way, if you click on it, you will be watching a video about a stepmother, but not necessarily in the same way. I don't remember...
It's not what I was expecting.
It's not a sex toy, though, right?
Well,
it's all there.
Everything is if you try hard enough. But and this is because people work from home.
Right.
Most of the tabs that you've got open are porn websites. If you copy and paste the wrong one, the next thing you know, you've sent people to wicked.com.
Back to our friends North Korea, and I thought they did well with the whole balloons filled with poop thing, but they managed to set me up for this gem too.
North Korean soldiers in Russia reportedly have unrestricted access, leading many to view pornography, which is actually usually banned in North Korea. So these people are seeing things like ankles and bits and pieces for the first time.
Yeah, I think it was 2015 that the country banned the big porn sites, the Pornhub, the YouPorn, and for some people, Age UK. And what they did was, by giving them full internet access, they're busy. They've got their hands full. That's what you want, really, isn't it? I guess they would have been doing innocent Googling, like searching for massive bazookas. And the next thing you know, the afternoon's gone, isn't it? And I've got a lot of sympathy for them because we got dial-up internet when I was a teenager. Man, that was a difficult time. It wasn't all GeoCities websites back in the day.
Absolutely, yes.
I've got a lot of sympathy, but this is a way to win the war, right? With Trump getting elected in, maybe we worry whether there'll be enough funding.
Yeah.
If we know that some of the soldiers are kept busy by, it's not about sending arms, it's about sending pictures of things next to your arms, ladies. We could save this war by you uploading your nudes, or it might not save it, and it's a risk I'm willing to take.
I think it's a fair point as well.
You see what I mean? They are helping my career more than, anyone, which isn't really saying much. Back to GB News, and this was a little moment when we were talking about Prince Andrew, and this wasn't even about the spy thing. Imagine being a spy and you find out you're being sent to get in with Prince Andrew. What will you have to do on that mission? Probably the kind of stuff where you go to an island and then you'll get cancelled. Poor bloke. H6 was his name as well. Well, it's not his real name because that just makes him sound like a pencil. Anyway, this is what we talked about.
Reveal who stumped up millions for Royal Lodge, Andrew told.
Yes. I mean, there have been many scandals about him. Recently, I saw one online that apparently he had 10,000 men.
That's another prince. That's another prince. People in America are not going to understand. I know. Yeah, I guess it is. That's
It's
right.
going to make the clip reel. I guarantee it's a good joke.
It is a very good joke.
And here we are in December, and it seems a bit pointless playing clips, really. They're on my social media. They've only just been broadcast, for crying out loud. We did get to do new intros on the new way of doing headliners. We can take a quick look.
I'm Stephen Allen, and tonight we've got a showbiz lineup. A woman who'll be on Strictly one day, Cressida Wetton, and a man who'll be on Lily Phillips one day, Lewis Schaefer. Tonight they'll be taking you through tomorrow's top stories. This is Headliners.
In case you didn't get that reference, it was an OnlyFans model who slept with 100 men in one day, and she's from Derby, the East Midlands, where I'm from. And in the East Midlands, 100 men in one night isn't a record attempt. It's a slow night down the village nightclub. Memories. Well, that's the year recovered through the medium of playing out old clips. I'll be back broadcasting somewhere, hopefully. You never know. I'm sure 2025 couldn't be any worse. Right, can we take a clip of that last bit and we'll use it next year when everything's really gone to shit?
In the rear view, we see it clear, every smile and every tear. With Steve's sly grin and clever view, our end of year review